Never started a presentation this way, with a picture of me. Okay, but that's not a picture of me when I see it. All right? That's a tribute. It's a tribute to the founder of this community. So for those of you who saw the Forbes edition, and I'm sure that's not everybody, but Forbes had a big feature section in this month's edition. Get it off the newsstands if you see it. And it's about small giants. Okay? And FreshBooks was a feature of that story, and this is a photo from that feature. But the point I really want to make is I just want to take a second, because I encourage you to read the story, because it was told really well. It was told by Bo, who is the founder, the author, and the founder of this community. So I thought maybe just take a moment and say thank you to Bo for I don't know, setting the ball rolling here for this community and to help all of us in the way we want to build our businesses. All right, so this is, I want to share with you a bit of my journey in hopes you can learn from it or draw something from it or be inspired by it in some small way. And an enormous part of my journey has been a fear of growth. Okay, so I'm going to take you on an arc to help you understand where we started, how I became afraid of growth, and then leave you with a couple thoughts on things that we did to sort of help overcome those fears and to scale the company, and in hopes that you can either do some of those things yourselves or just draw some inspiration to come up with your own way of getting it done. So a snapshot, we got it there. Over 10 million people have used our software since we started. We help people collect billions of dollars every month. We're a team of 250 people. I think what's a lot more impressive in my books as a founder is there's two speakers ago, and I forget his first name right now, but Sean, thank you. Sean's talking about the Great Places to Work survey being a really good thing to enter in. I encourage you all to do it. We are the #1 company to work for, Great Places to Work, under 1,000 employees last year. We were #4 this year, okay? So good track record is kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at there, and keeps us hungry, right? Being #4, we've got work to do. So very, very proud of those accomplishments. And as a founder, actually that matters more to me than anything. When I think about sort of fear of growth and what the wrong side of that looks like, it's like people aren't excited to come in on Monday, right? And I talk about success in this way as, when we're 1,000 employees, okay? If people don't love being there and the business doesn't have the mojo, then it's a complete failure for me. Like, I don't care how financially successful we are, like, it's nothing, because we lost that. So this is the place I'm coming for mindset-wise, and we're growing. We're 250 people. We're hiring 50 now. So, clicker. Go to the next slide. So we started out in a humble way. The story goes, I started the business. I was running a small design firm, building, frankly, websites and things for small business owners. I was using Word and Excel to bill my clients, despite having pretty much studied accounting in school, or part of my business degree was accounting. I understood it, but I didn't like the software at the time. Saved over an invoice, decided there had to be a better way, built it, just for, again, humble beginnings. Built it for myself to run my business with. Pretty soon, it seemed like, hey, this is kind of fun building this product, and other people might like it, so let's work on that. Spent, this is like 2003, spent about a year turning that into a service other people could sign up for. We launched in May 2004. Come December 2004, so I'm 2 years in to doing this, we had 10 customers paying us $9.99 a month each. So we're making $100, okay? $100 a month. Co-founder's a doctorate in computer science, now a tenured professor. Other guy's an electrical engineer. So good team, $100 a month, by all accounts a failure. And so what do you do in that scenario? We moved into my parents' basement for 3.5 years. Okay, I turned 30 in my parents' basement. But we were committed to building it. And it was in those early days that it became really clear, and it was interesting listening to Carla this morning, if I click a slide here. She talked about extraordinary experiences. Well, our mantra, as was mentioned by Deanna there, is execute extraordinary experiences every day. And I could unpack that whole thing for you, but you all get the gist. That's our credo, right? We want to do it for our customers, for our fellow FreshBookers. We believe if we do those things, we get the growth at the other side, which is important too. So we were in the basement. We were there for 3.5 years. And this obsession with service sort of came forward. And I think this is kind of the degree and the insanity and the lengths are kind of captured in the following anecdote, which is our first non-founder hire was this guy, Daniel. He joined us straight out of computer science school, good university in town. And we proofread and checked every email he would send to a customer for the first 3 months. He joined the company to ensure its integrity, that it was good, the right tone, it was accurate, all that stuff. He was a bright guy, right? Now, it wasn't a high volume at that time, so that's not to say he was doing it all day long, but it was 3 months because we cared so much about the quality, okay? And we were a little crazy. Not too long after this, discovered Beau's book, okay? So I don't know what year this would be, probably pretty soon after it came out. And I read it, and it really spoke to me. This was like, these were the words as, geez, I'm not doing so well with names, but a gentleman just spoke. It gave me the language for kind of what I was feeling inside, what I knew I wanted to achieve. And coming out of that, we sort of committed, it's through conversation with the 3 founders and what have you, we are going to build the best 10-person company in the world. Because what I seemed to deduce from the book, rightly or wrongly, was that greatness is at odds with the number of employees you have. Okay? And therein began my enormous fear of growth. Okay? Fear of growth that we had venture capitalists calling us for years trying to write checks. And the main reason I didn't do it, because I was afraid. I was afraid we'd lose our way. I was afraid we'd lose our mojo. My fear of losing greatness was greater than my drive for growth. Okay, so fear of growth, thank you. But if we go to the next slide, there's a flaw in this logic, which I started to realize, which is if we're successful, and I feel like we're on track for that because there's hundreds of people signing up every day to try and use this product, we're going to hire more than 10 people in customer service. And note, that was like my number one thing. Of course, you start with the service people. You're never short there. They got to be great. You start there. 10 service people. But listen, once you get there, you got to realize there's a problem. You're not developing the product anymore. And so people are going to be unhappy. Right? And it's like, uh-oh, wait a second. You can't, like 10 service people, because that's everybody. Now we can't develop the product. Unhappy customers. Wait a second. It doesn't work. There's a problem. It actually doesn't work. And so, go to my next slide. The question became, well, how do you scale a culture of service? And when I say culture of service, I mean culture of service. Because I don't know if you all have heard of FreshBooks before, but not only top place to work, also sort of mentioned alongside Zappos and Rackspace and others as one of the great service cultures. And just a small example of this, we use a company called Nice Reply, which some of you may want to try. It's a customer feedback mechanism. They have 10,000 customers. We are the largest on there, and we also have the highest scores. Okay, so still at scale, we're top of the class, right? So we're still doing it. All right. Now, that's a tough question. How do you scale a service culture? And this is where, on transition day, here are some of the things that we did that I hope some of you all might use, because I'm sure there's scaling culture, and then I'm sure many of you also really care about the level of service and the quality of care. So before I go into kind of how we did it, I just want to start with, I think you have to know your enemy. Okay? So yes, I have this deep, abiding fear. But you have to sort of make rational sense of it on some level. And frankly, Small Giants helped me do that. And so here are the 3 things I would think about if I were you, high level, in terms of keeping this culture of service alive. And so thing number 1 is proximity to customer. how do you keep everyone in the business connected to the customer? Because as soon as you start to get that distance, things break down, right? And frankly, respect for your service organization does if another part of your team doesn't have to interact with customers or whatever it is. So proximity to customer. Proximity to leadership would be another one. So that's where the number of people starts to become really problematic because people don't feel connected to the leaders, and then there's a distance, and you don't care anymore. And then the third problem I'd put forward is proximity to each other. I'm going to talk a little bit about Dunbar's law and some of the things that happen when you hit 150 people. Okay, so those are the three enemies I would say you're fighting in scaling your culture, and I'm going to go ahead and apply some of those to service and to culture in general. All right. So what is the answer? How do you do this? How do you fight this fear? How do you scale your culture and keep it great? And the simple answer is this. So obvious, really. Culture hacks. Well, that's what I call them, okay? I believe entrepreneurs and owners are artists. Okay? I believe this. And the business is your canvas, okay? And you need to think like a designer, right? You need to design what you want. And that means at different stages and different scales, you need to do different things. And you need to design those outcomes. And that includes not just product and org structure and whatever, but actually culture. And so you use what I call culture hacks, which are deliberate acts that have downstream effects that you want. And some of these you probably have in your businesses already, you got by accident. And as you scale and as you fight this fear, you're going to have to take on other ones in a more purposeful manner. So I'm going to tell you about each of the three enemies and things we've done to take them on. So proximity to customer. Fun fact. Probably the single most important culture hack that we put in place. Everyone at FreshBooks spends their first month in customer service. Everyone. Everyone. The CFO we hired 18 months ago has taken 3 companies public. We didn't hire him to go public, hired him because he's a great CFO. Okay? He went and spent a month in customer service. Okay? When you get there, you are first given a week of onboarding, okay, that tells you about the company, shares with you the open books, tells you about the metrics of the business, and actually gets into some of the culture stuff, but is really also primarily about educating you on the product. Because week number 2, and for 3 and 4, you're on the phones, you're talking with customers, you're answering emails, and all the rest of it. Okay, so that first month in customer service is awesome. By the way, that's when you meet what we call our customer service rock stars. So it's not just customer service reps, they're rock stars at FreshBooks. And they are allowed to do whatever they think is necessary to do the right thing for our customers, okay? And if they go too far one day, sometimes that's giving people 3 years of their, things like that have happened, 3 years of your revenue back. It's okay, just don't do it again, okay? That's too far. Let's find the right boundaries. There's probably some other way that you could have served this customer without going quite to those lengths. But I'd rather go too far and pare back than have people be, I don't know if I can do that, right? So that's proximity to customer. That's primarily how we go about sort of fighting that. Proximity to leadership is another really important piece. And so for the first 150 people we hired at FreshBooks, in fact, I will even say it a little differently because it would have been more than that, but until we were 150 in headcount, because we would have had attrition over the years, my co-founder Levi and I met every single person together in an interview that we called a founder's interview. Okay? And so, most of the time we said yes. I'll say 2% of the time we said no. Okay? It wasn't really about us being gatekeepers so much as we actually liked getting the opportunity to meet people. So we'd see them around and we'd find out about their lives before they came here, and the place kind of felt smaller. Right? And I think that that's really important. We hired 100 people, 40 people in a quarter and 100 people in a period of time, and I couldn't keep up with that. So now what I do is one of us meets everybody, and I have lunches with 6 or 7 people who I didn't get a chance to meet in the interview process. I basically do the same thing. And then they all meet each other, the place feels small, it's good. So the point is, hey, I had a tactic, it didn't scale, I got to change it. Another thing I did is when we hit 200 people, started having a weekly meeting where myself and other people get in front of, we actually buy lunch for the whole company, and everybody comes down, and not everybody, actually, it's optional. And 15 minutes to grab your lunch, 45 minutes of kind of presentations. And I talk to the company, I talk about our values, I talk about those kinds of things there. But needed that more regular weekly meeting to do that, disseminate news and check in on this stuff. Okay, so the final enemy is proximity to each other, right? So as you get bigger, you start to fight what's called Dunbar's number. And at 150 people, human beings, like they literally cannot process a community of that size. Right? Things break down. That is like literally 151 people. First time I started forgetting names. Right? I couldn't put it together. Like it was uncanny. All right. And so we saw this coming. You can research at Gore Technologies. I don't know if they are actually listed as a small giant, but I'm sure they would apply. They only build facilities of up to 150 people, and then they just do another one for this very reason, right? And so something y'all may want to think about because it does feel different south of 150. We're 250 in one location. Okay, so Dunbar's number. So I saw this number coming. Here's something I did. And it's amazing how powerful these kinds of things can be. I said, listen, folks, we're coming up 150 people. I've been worried about this for years. Let me tell you about what I want FreshBooks to be and how I need you to behave. And here's what I said. I said, I want FreshBooks to be like the best cocktail party you have ever been to. But why? Why would I say that? Well, let me explain why. So here's why. Because when you go to a cocktail party, you've been invited by somebody that you know and you probably like. Okay? And you probably know a few other people in the room. But you probably don't know everybody. And so you're having fun. You got maybe a little bit of a buzz on. You're having a good time. You're talking with people you know. Maybe you're meeting one or two people you don't know. Okay? And what you do is you generally, hey, introduce yourself and say, hey, this is great. And it's not weird. Maybe you've met that person once or twice before. Oh, what's your name again? It's not weird. So let's make this place like that. And so when you see somebody around, okay, here's my expectation. We're hiring somebody, past 150, it's actually getting hard to tell if you don't meet everybody when they come in. Are you new? Have you been here for a little bit? I'm not sure anymore. So here's the deal. If you're not familiar with one another, just introduce yourself. That is the expectation. If you can't remember the name, we're going to have a social contract that doesn't matter. Okay, it's not a sign of disrespect. The most important thing is to acknowledge one another and say hello. So that was good. People started doing that. They still do that. That's the expectation. It's amazing. I said this like once, took hold. We actually did put it in our onboarding program for new hires. Okay, so this is part of our onboarding. We tell you this is the explicit expectation. Say hello, introduce yourself. Then like within 6 weeks, we crossed over 150 people. And I was walking down a hall. And for the first time in my 10, 13 years working at this company, I walked past somebody and they stared at their feet and they didn't say hello. And I was like, oh my God, this is awful. This is what they're talking about. This is it. This is like, we're toast. But I was like, no, we're not toast. There's no way. We don't have to be toast now. What are we going to do about this? And so these are all culture hacks. I call these culture hacks. One little hack software thing, hacks. But anyways, so next all company meeting. Okay, folks, this just happened. None of us want to live in that kind of a place, so here's the new rule. All right? It's called heads up hello. When we walk by somebody in the hallway, our heads are up, we say a quick hello. You don't have to stop, you don't have to slow down, just heads up hello. Don't be staring at your phone, don't be whatever. You know what? Again, said it one time, and it just took, right? That's the culture now. That's part of what it is. So those are the three enemies. Actually, if I have 30 seconds, I don't know, how am I doing for time? I see at the back? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, one other thing that I think might be interesting to you all that you may want to consider is the following. I believe to the extent you can influence this, your office space really matters, okay? And so I have been personally involved with designing our last 3 office spaces. And when I say designing, it's like we try and find a relatively neat space, and then we try and spend as little money as possible to make it work the way we want to, okay? So it's not like big check design. It's like, you think it's going to cost that much? We're doing it for 55% of that cost. How are we going to get it done? But the point is, we are actively designing it. We're thinking about how the space fits together and how it works. And design is kind of undervalued in this world in many ways. So here's what we designed for. Here are the 3 principles that I try to build into our office spaces. I call them the 3 C's. So collisions, collaboration, and connectedness. And connectedness is the one I'd like to call your attention to in particular, because I think it's the thing that helps us keep proximity to one another. So we have done several things to make the place feel small. When I was relatively early building FreshBooks, we had the most senior manager we'd hired into the building. He talked about working in a prior company that was very successful, and that the whole place changed when they got a second floor. And I was like, oh no. Like, basically, we could never have a second floor. I'm pleased to report we are 250 people today with everybody working on the same floor. Okay? And so we went and I found this building, and it was like luck and destiny. It's an 80,000-foot floor plate, all right, with big, long lines of sight. Okay, so you come into the building, our kitchen area and common space is down below. That's okay. Everyone's working on the same floor. Clear line of sight, not all connected. But yeah, the other thing to do is we use a lot of glass. So we put all the meeting rooms on the outside, all the people on the inside. And so if you're in working away, you can look and see if somebody's in a meeting room. My office, I call it the fishbowl, right? It's glass on sort of two sides in a prominent place because I believe proximity to leadership and proximity to one another are important. Okay, so just think about some of those things because I think they are things that influence the feel of our culture. All right, with all that said, I'm pretty much done. I want to leave you with a couple parting thoughts and a bit of a call to action. So, parting thought number one. Stay fearful, my friends. I'm still scared. And if I'm not, the day I'm not worried about this is the day we're in serious jeopardy. Okay? I am still afraid. I'm still adjusting. I'm still kind of writing these hacks. Okay? But I tell you a little story here. Never really worked for anybody else. Okay? Kind of tangentially, but not really. Didn't have a job anywhere else. And the closest thing I would say I had to it was I used to lead canoe trips. I was like a summer camp counselor. My last two were like a 36-day canoe trip and a 42-day canoe trip. And about 10 days from the end of that last 42-day canoe trip, a bunch of 15, 16-year-old boys, myself and another counselor leading them on this trip, we found ourselves at a place, and there's a water tower there. Okay, so this is this rickety metal thing that goes up, and it's where the park rangers would go to see if there's a fire, high point, all these lakes. If there's a forest fire, they go up there. And everyone had climbed up this thing. And I do not like heights at all. And it's you're climbing up, it's multiple stories, and it's one of those ones where there's steel around the ladder, so if you fall, you're just going to basically break your neck 100 times. But you won't fall straight down, you'll just bang, bang. Anyways, very terrifying, blowing in the wind, there's 7 people up there, and I was like, I can't do this. I hate heights, this is my big scare. But I went up. Okay, and so the final thought I would leave you with, as it pertains to building and scaling your companies and your cultures, is don't let your fears stand in the way of your dreams. Okay, you can do this. There's a way if you apply yourself. That's all. Thank you. Cool. So we probably have 2 minutes for questions, if my instinctual calculations are correct. Can you say those 3 C's again with regards to office space? Yeah. Collision, collaboration, and connectedness. So it's open space, collaboration. Collisions are be strategic. We have one kitchen, force people to go there. I tried to force one set of bathrooms. I didn't. Next time, maybe. Yeah, seriously, you want to pull people from the back of the office, right? It's a deliberate choice. These are real considerations, but there was a mutiny. So, yes? What's my vision for my end game? Just continue to build a great company, right? That is, I am not motivated by money, okay? But here's what I will say is, I feel like the challenge of growing and staying true to building a great place is actually what interests me, right? And if I'd stayed a 10-person company, I think I would have been bored, right? And that's not a judgment. That's maybe who I am. I need the change. And so this is hard, and I got to figure it out, and I don't know how to do it, and that's what I like. Yeah. Yes?
Do you
do our engineers do the customer service training too for a month? 100% of people who join FreshBooks spend a month in customer service. Actually, interesting caveat and carve-out now that I've been imposing, except for HR and IT with internal related. And why is that? Because their customers are inside the building. So I want our HR people to spend 2 weeks and get the first 2 weeks, and then I want them to start meeting with who their customers are, right? That's the point, right? They're not doing as much external stuff. Yeah. Bo's got a question here.
I actually have a question that I never asked you when I was doing the research for the story. And I'm not going to ask you what your revenues are. That's a whole other story. When you started your competitor, BillSpring, or you authorized the starting of this competitor, BillSpring, they really went off and they were operating independently of you. There's this whole development that happened with them in terms of the way that they worked, which was really something that they did themselves. And they figured out for themselves, and now it has come to have this profound effect on the whole company. I mean, I think that was the most interesting part of the story for me, was how, you know, not only did you get a new FreshBooks out of this, but you got this huge change in the culture of the company that actually brought everyone much closer to customers than they'd ever been before. It brought a whole part of the company that, you know, the engineering part of the company, which hadn't really been that close to the customers, they became very, very. How did you deal with that? All this was happening without you.
Okay. So just a little context. In case you haven't read the article, and I'm going to plug it again because it's a very nice piece of storytelling. What we did was, we're a software platform, we're online, and we built a new platform, and the way we did that was by incubating a competitor to ourselves, and then ultimately kind of merging the two. And so we set off this team that was able to basically work independent of us, seeded like a small team, and they went and found a new way of working. They built a whole new product, and I had been sort of, pretty involved with all things prior to that, and this was my hey, letting those folks go and do things, and they brought new stuff back. So I guess, sorry, to get back to the fine point of the question is, how did it kind of live for me, or how did? I mean,
you were very, very much in control.
Okay.
Of the company. And that sort of came through from what people told me.
Yep.
Whenever there was going to be a new product, you would sit down with them and you go through every.
Yeah. It's true. So prior to this development, just a little bit of detail, and then we'll get to an answer to the question. I used to review every line of copy that went out to customers, which is like a level of micromanagement that you might think is completely insane, back to 3 months of what have you. And I have my reasons for that, which I won't enumerate now, but let's just say it's a fact that I did that, which is pretty extreme, right? Slows things down. People felt like I was a blocker and a bottleneck and all these other things. And so the big difference between that and how people interpreted it, which was your bottleneck, you're in the way, and what have you. I hate to say this, but my take on that was, hey, folks, you're actually not demonstrating competence on a consistent basis when you bring these things forward. You can't say these words, but it wasn't good enough. And what we did was we'd hired, I kind of found, and this is a belief that I have, is every problem's a people problem, every solution's a people solution. And so I finally went and got what I believe is my first executive, true executive. I thought I had hired some before. I'd hired some really big names and some really great resumes, but no, I finally got one. And this individual coached the team up so they could succeed doing this, okay? And then with that person in place doing that, I was more than happy to drop the, he was like, Mike, you're not involved. We're going to go away for 2 weeks and bring you back something, and you can let us know what you think, and then if you say keep going, we'll go away, but you're not involved. And I was like, hey, peace, right? Because I had so much, that person had demonstrated a capability to build people up and to deliver things competently. So I guess for those of you who are afraid also of losing quality or scaling things and someone else can't do it, really I would encourage you to think about your hiring and really encourage you to think about hiring people who are way, way better than you'll ever be at the things that you do. Because I just get so happy when that piece falls into place, right? That's how you do it, in my opinion. So with that, I hope that helps, Bo. Honor of my life to be here speaking at Small Giants, to be completely honest, ever since reading the book. So, and I'm going to keep working on it. Hope you folks do too as well. Thanks a lot.